Today on Thin, Strong, Healthy, we're going to talk about sugar. How much sugar do you really consume? What's the best type of sugar to use? What about artificial sweeteners? And we're going to talk a little bit about the basics of label reading for sugar content. So stick with me. Hi, I'm Cheryl Major, and I want to welcome you to this edition of Thin, Strong, Healthy. Did you know that in our state, 1 out of every 4 adults is obese? Over 35% of our population here is overweight. And it gets worse than that. 12.9% of our young people, of our really young people, our adolescents, are overweight. And 10% of our adolescents are obese. People who are obese are at a higher risk of high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, stroke, heart disease, and cancer. And while sugar is not the main culprit, it is a major factor. So what exactly is sugar? We love it so much, but what is it? It is a highly addictive, non-nutrient sweetener. It causes opiate and dopamine production in the brain, and it hits the pleasure centers in the brain, so it makes us feel good for a short amount of time, and then it drops us. It really lets us down. Did you know that sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine? Scientists and researchers have done experiments and tests with rats, and rats are not stupid animals. And they give them a pile of cocaine, and they give them a pile of sugar, and guess which one they go to every single time? They go to the sugar every time. And junk food addiction is more like drug addiction than researchers previously thought. Now, sugar makes us fat because our bodies can only use so much energy at a time. Our cells convert glucose into energy to be used immediately, and what's not immediately used is stored as fat cells, assuming that we'll need it at another time. But if you're not an active person and you're not using up that extra energy and you continue to eat more sugar, more of this processed food that's going to make you fat, you don't use all the energy that's at your disposal, all the glucose that turns into energy, and more of it is stored as fat cells. And it's a vicious cycle that repeats and repeats and repeats, and that's why sugar can cause us to have such a problem with weight gain. Now, this also taxes your heart because all those new fat cells have a blood supply. So as we get heavier and heavier and we have more and more fat cells, our hearts have to pump harder and harder to get the blood to those new fat cells. So sugar also makes your body acidic rather than alkaline. And you want to keep your body alkaline to keep it healthy. Sugar also contributes to inflammation, and research is showing time and time again that inflammation is the root cause of disease, chronic disease, and premature aging. So we want to keep inflammation down, which means keeping our bodies alkaline, not acidic. Now, sugar also causes and contributes to diabetes, obesity, heart disease, cancer, and even depression. Now, as a formerly depressed person, I can tell you that I'm very, very careful about my sugar intake because I don't want anything to kick me back into those days when I lived and fought with depression. Now, cancer. Sugar is cancer food. Cancer loves an acidic environment. And what happens when you eat sugar is your body becomes acid. So if you want to avoid cancer, or for those of you who have had cancer, you want to stay away from it, you need to stay away from sugar, and you need to make your body more alkaline. So the question becomes, how much sugar are you actually eating in a day? And I know a lot of people I talk to say, well, you know, I'm off sugar, I avoid sugar, I don't eat sugar. And I know that they think they're not eating sugar, but then the question becomes, how much hidden sugar are you eating in a day? So we're going to dig down into that a little bit today. And as a former teacher, I have homework for you. I want you to go get a piece of paper and a pencil because I want you to write some things down. I have a project for you. And this is going to help you find out exactly what your sugar intake is, so you have a good place to start. I want you to journal everything you eat, all the food you eat, for a day or two. 1 day is good, 2 days, or even 3 days would be better. And I have food journaling examples for you to follow, food journaling forms available on my website. If you go to thinstronghealthy.com, and please write that down, and in the menu bar, you look and you find toward the right-hand side the resources section. And I'll show you this. I'll show you a picture of this later on, but you click on the resources section and you go down. I'll try to keep it at the top of all that information, but you'll see food journaling forms. So we're going to take a look at what to expect when you do download those. And you'll see here that this is a food record, an example food record, and it has time, what was eaten, and the type of that. For instance, it was a bagel, it was whole wheat, the preparation was it was toasted, and the amount was it was half a bagel. Now, another thing that I'd like you to do when you do this, and especially, I even want you to write down the things that you wish you hadn't eaten. If you really try to eat well, and I have a coaching client who said to me, I said to her, what's your biggest challenge? And she said, well, I get upset or I get really hungry, and then I eat things that I really don't want to eat or I really shouldn't eat that I know don't serve me. And afterwards I say, why did I eat that? So I want you to write down even the why did I eat that stuff. And when you write that down, especially those why did I eat those items, I want you to write down how you felt or what was going on, because it's really important, again, to find out where we are, what motivates you to eat things that you wish you hadn't eaten. So please do that. So this is what the food record looks like that you'll download and that you'll fill in. This is the blank version. Now, another of my coaching clients has very graciously given me permission to share her food journal with you. And we're going to look at just her breakfast today because that'll give us a good sense of what's going on for her. So here is a slide of Laura's breakfast. And for breakfast, Laura had a serving of Greek yogurt, and it was plain, so you'd think that that's okay. Banana, a Larabar, which is a health bar, an energy bar, 2 eggs cooked in coconut oil. Coconut oil is a good choice. And tangerine juice. Now, this next slide is going to show the breakdown of how much hidden sugar is in Laura's breakfast. If you look there, the Greek yogurt has 16 grams or 4 teaspoons of sugar. The banana, and I gave her credit, she might have eaten a large banana, but I said, well, it's probably a medium banana, would have 14 grams or 3.5 teaspoons of sugar. The Larabar, and I looked at these online because she didn't tell me which one it was, but I chose the one that had the least amount of sugar, and it still had 17 grams or 4+ teaspoons of sugar. Now, the 2 eggs cooked in coconut oil, that's a good choice because those have 0 grams of sugar. And then she had tangerine juice. Well, how many of us have tangerine juice or orange juice to kick off our day? That 1 cup of tangerine juice had 24.5 grams or 6+ tablespoons of sugar. Now, the maximum amount of added sugar is supposed to be 25 grams or 6 teaspoons, a little more than 6 teaspoons per day. It's still an awful lot of sugar, but that is recommended as the maximum. Laura was eating over 17.5 teaspoons of sugar in just her breakfast. So she was eating almost 3 times the sugar that she should have in a day for breakfast. She was shocked. It was a phone coaching session, and I could hear her gasping over the phone because she had no idea she was eating that much sugar. And Laura's not an exception. There's sugar hidden in everything. When they took out the fat, they took out a lot of flavor. And if you remember the low-fat, no-fat craze, and I got on that bandwagon big time because my husband has cholesterol issues in his family, we said, we got to get off the fat. So we started looking for no-fat, low-fat foods, but what happened was when they took out the fat and the flavor disappeared, the processed food industry was in a bit of a quandary. What do we do to replace the flavor that we've taken out when we take out the fat? And what they did was they replaced it with more salt and lots of sugar. They added that to replace the lost flavor from the fat. So please do this for yourselves. It doesn't have to take very long. And you know, when you say, well, I don't know how much sugar there is in each item, what I did when I was figuring out Laura's breakfast and hidden sugars was I just went to Google and I just put in the amount and I guesstimated, and that's all you have to do. It doesn't have to be exact. But for instance, I didn't know how much yogurt she had, but I figured, yeah, it's probably, you know, a cup or close to it. So I put in how many grams of sugar in a cup of plain Greek yogurt, and that gave me the grams. And then when I got that, I just divided by 4, and that gave me the teaspoons, because there are approximately 4 grams per teaspoon, 4 grams in a teaspoon of sugar. So if you're trying to change your weight and your health, you have to know where you are. I tell people it's like getting directions. If you call somebody, you say, I'm lost, how do I get to such and such a store or such and such a restaurant? What's the first thing they're going to ask you? They're going to ask you, well, where are you now? Where are you now? What's the street, the cross points where you are now? So it's the same thing with trying to make improvements in your health. And it's the same thing when you're trying to make changes in your weight. And I almost said diet, but to me, diet is a 4-letter word. And please, I don't want you to think of dieting anymore. For a variety of reasons, dieting is temporary, and it speaks to being up and down with your weight, because if you're not you're not eating a certain way as a lifestyle, it's going to come and go. And believe me, when you yo-yo and you lose and you gain, you lose and you gain, your body starts to want to hang on to that weight. It becomes harder and harder to lose weight. And if you've lost and gained and lost and gained, and you can't understand why it's getting so hard, it's because that lose-gain process makes your body think it's starving. And it hangs on to that extra weight to protect you from starving. So getting back to directions, you need a starting point in order to make lasting changes. So that's what we're trying to do now. We have to figure out where you are in order to plan a goal, in order to plan the trip to better health and less weight. So then we move on to what's the best type of sugar to use? Well, the simple answer is there isn't one. To your body, sugar is sugar is sugar. And you might say, well, what about bread and pasta and potatoes and white rice? Well, that's simple starch too, and that gets converted to sugar very, very easily by your body. So you want to avoid that. You want to, if you love potatoes, sweet potatoes are a wonderful alternative. They give you much less of a glycemic bump. They convert to sugar much more slowly, and they can be absolutely fabulous to eat. I'll tell you, we have them a lot. I steam them, I cube them up, and I steam them till they're almost done. And then I put them in a skillet with some olive oil and some coarse salt, and I brown them. And it's like hash brown or just browned sweet potatoes, and they're so good. They get kind of a caramelized taste. They're delicious, and sweet potatoes are extremely good for you. I'm going to have more recipes like this, really simple things to do, on my website as we go on. Now, I want to talk to you about fruit juice versus plain fruit. You remember when we looked at Laura's breakfast and we saw the tangerine juice, and there was so much sugar that she got with that. If she had substituted a tangerine instead of the tangerine juice, she would have been much better off. For those of you who love to have orange juice with your breakfast, I encourage you, have an orange, or if you don't want a whole orange, have a half an orange or have a few slices of orange. It's so much better for you. You get more nutrients, you get more vitamins that are lost when you do the juice, when you create juice from the fruit. And the actual fiber in the fruit slows down the metabolism of the sugar. It slows down the conversion to glucose. So always, the whole fresh fruit is a much better choice than juice of any kind. Now, you may be wondering, but I have to have sugar in my tea, or I want to put a little sugar on this, or what do I use in baking? Well, truthfully, I know we hear about organic agave and organic stevia. Not a good choice, because it's still sugar is sugar is sugar. If you need to have some sort of sweetener, and we all do, I mean, I use a sweetener sometimes too, and my go-to now is xylitol. And xylitol, the correct kind of xylitol that you want to look for, is made from birch trees, actually, which sounds kind of weird, but that's where it comes from. But you have to be very careful, because now there's a cheaper form of xylitol that is coming from China. So if you're shopping for xylitol and you turn it over, and you should always turn over and see where a food product comes from, it says made in China, put it back, because it's not the xylitol that you want. Xylitol really does not give you much of a sugar. It really doesn't give you any sugar bump at all, but it's really good as a sweetener. It looks like sugar. It looks like sugar crystals, and it's great in tea. If you have a grapefruit and you say, it's so sour, I mean, when I was a kid, that's what we did. We poured sugar all over our grapefruit to sweeten it. If you have grapefruit and you say, okay, I want a little bit of sweet, put some xylitol on it. Put some xylitol on it. Give it a try. So what about health bars or energy bars? Well, Laura's health bar, her Lara bar, was loaded with sugar. It had over 4 teaspoons of sugar, 17 grams of sugar in that bar. And that's not unusual. You need to look on the back, and you need to look and see how much sugar is there. Now, your body doesn't care what kind of sugar it is. As we said, sugar is sugar is sugar to your body. It's all sugar. So that brings us to the question of, should I turn to artificial sweeteners? And the cruel fact of it is that artificial sweeteners actually slow down your metabolism. So if you're someone who's in the habit of going out for fast food, and you have your burger and you have your fries, and you say, okay, I don't want to completely blow it, so I'm going to have a Diet Coke or a Diet Pepsi or a Diet soft drink of some sort, just be aware that you're slowing down your metabolism. You're reducing your body's ability to burn that fat and lose that weight. In addition to that, artificial sweeteners, and somebody like me who's prone to depression, or who was prone to depression, a couple of servings of artificial sweeteners can trigger a bout of depression. So you have to be very, very careful with that. So let's move on and talk about how to figure out how much sugar is in a package of food, is in cookies or in yogurt or in anything that you're going to buy. So if you remember, and we've talked about this before, but it bears repeating, the front of the package is for advertising. That is a billboard, and you can't depend on it for the truth. It's not regulated. The back of the package is where they have to tell the truth. I mean, there's a little wiggle room there, but they have to tell the truth on the back of the package. You know how you see on the front of the package, 0 sugar, no added sugar, that kind of thing? 0 doesn't necessarily mean 0. So when you see 0 on the front of the package, that's when you have to turn it over and you have to look more closely. And you need to remember that federal regulations allow a food label even on the back, and this speaks to they're supposed to tell the truth, kind of, sort of. If there is less than 0.5 grams of sugar in one serving of that food, they're allowed to say or claim 0 sugar. So you need to check the servings. First of all, let me go back just a little bit. So even if you're eating 1 serving, you may be eating just a little bit less than 0.5 grams of sugar. So you're still getting added sugar. If you're eating more than 1 serving of that food, you're eating 2 or 3, you need to multiply that sugar by 2, or that potential for sugar by 2 or 3. So if you're eating 2 servings and say there's just under 0.5 grams, say it's 0.4 grams, you're getting 0.8 grams of sugar or almost a whole gram of sugar when you thought you were avoiding it and you were eating a food that had 0 sugar. So let's review what is a gram of sugar in our everyday kitchen terms. I know we kind of mentioned this before, but I want to put it in more lay terms that we can all relate to. 1 gram of sugar equals 1/4 teaspoon. 4 grams equals 1 teaspoon. So we're going to talk a little bit about food and sugar as it relates to kids, because we've talked about sugar and we've looked at packages of food as it relates to more adult foods. But what about kids' foods? And I'm going to show you a couple of slides here. This is Stonyfield Yo Baby yogurt. And it says on the front of the package, organic whole milk yogurt, vitamin D added. That sounds great. And it says no toxic pesticides. Well, I like that a lot. That sounds like a really good choice. But let's look at the back of the package and just see exactly what's going on there. Okay, 1 serving size. Let's go down to sugars. Look at the sugar. In 1 serving size, there are 12 grams of sugar. So we divide those grams by 4, and we now realize that we are giving our baby or our toddler 3 teaspoons of sugar every time they have a little container of Yo Baby. So when you look and you see that there's 0 sugar, now that you know that it can be hidden and you know you have to go to the ingredients and you look in the ingredients, what do you look for? So here's another slide for you. And by the way, I'm going to put this on my website as well for you in the resource section. And this is courtesy of the documentary Fed Up. And it's the 56 names of sugar. So take a look at this. Some of these look really familiar, like cane sugar, brown sugar. But then there are others like caramel and treacle and golden syrup and things that we just don't recognize as being sugar. So I'm going to make that available for you. Please download it, keep it with you, and whip it out at the food store and just kind of go through your labels. At first, label reading is going to seem like a chore to you, but I promise you, you will learn so much and you will make such better choices that it will become just a natural thing that you will do. You will not buy food, if you stick with me on this, without vetting the label, without looking at the label. So I want to show you where to go on my website. So take a look at this. Here's my website, Thin, Strong, Healthy. And you see that gray bar under the green header there. I'm circling where I want you to go. That's resources. And you want to go there, and there are books and DVDs, but there's also information that we'll talk about on these programs that you can download. There are recipes that you can download in to the left of that as well. So just remember, you don't have a chance unless you take a stand for yourself. You're bombarded constantly with ads for fast food and sugar all the time. And let's not kid ourselves, it tastes so good. Sugar tastes amazing. But if you continue to eat sugar, what you can expect is additional weight gain. You can expect your glucose numbers to go up. You can expect to be pre-diabetes or diabetes. And now they're determining and they're saying that pre-diabetes and diabetes are the same thing. So if you've been told that you're pre-diabetes, diabetic. So you can back it up. You can get your glucose levels and your sugar levels under control. If you keep eating sugar, you can expect bad skin, poor skin tone, poor skin color. You can expect belly fat. But I assure you, you can eat to be well rather than eat to be sick. You can reclaim your health. And that's what this program is going to be about. I want to support you eating to be healthy. So as I said before, this is not a diet. I don't want you to diet. This is not a diet. This is a lifestyle. And you need to learn how to shop. Stick to the outside of the grocery store. Don't go inside. If you go inside, you're going to be looking at chips and soda and cookies and cake mixes. And I want you to stay on the outside. That's where the whole foods and the less processed foods are. And once you get off sugar, you're not going to crave it like you do now. And one thing that's really kind of funny is when you get off sugar, it doesn't taste the same. It has almost a bitter taste. It's a funny thing to describe. When you get off sugar, you let me know if the same thing happens for you. But when you get off sugar, you lose weight. Your doctor will be much happier with you because your numbers will be better. Your glucose will come down. Your face will lose its puffiness. You'll become taut, and you'll look younger. You'll look younger when you get off sugar. So I want to hear from you. And I'm going to give you my email address right now. And if you have any challenges or any questions when you do your food journal, I'm here to support you. Please feel free to email me. Here's my email. It's Cheryl@thinstronghealthy.com. And I want to know what you need to know about healthy eating. So please let me know what your preferred topics are, what you'd like me to cover. I'm doing this for you. I'm Cheryl Major. I want to thank you for spending this time with me on Thin, Strong, Healthy.